volume is up on this thing. I just thought about that just now. I didn't even check the volume. So, good morning, everyone. I woke up, been up for a little while, and I was thinking, doing some thinking as I was just trying to, get ready for the day. Had a little bit of breakfast, and just reflecting on things, not purposefully, just things started to come up. I was watching um, the Joe Budden podcast, which he I enjoy him. So I'm watching old footage, old videos of that this morning. In between other things, some comedy, news, that kind of stuff. And sitting back and I'm listening to the banter between, hi, thanks for coming by, between the guys and just over the last week, just paying attention to what's going on here um, with the podcasts and the controversies. And then I started to think about the spiritual journey and the things about myself that have been brought to my own attention about me, the lessons. And then I started thinking about the boundaries. And then I said, well, wait a minute now. Why am I beating up on myself? I've set boundaries in my life. Thanks for coming. Could you just give me a thumbs up so I know that you can hear me? I've set up boundaries in my life. I've set I thought, strict boundaries with people. Hold on 1 minute. Let me just make sure that this volume is up. Yeah, I think it is. Yep. Yeah. I've set I've had to set boundaries with people. I've set boundaries with my siblings. I've set boundaries with my family, my mother, over the years. This is not a new thing for me, you know. I I was like, well, why? What did I? What more boundaries did I need to set for myself? I'm not a person that would initiate nonsense, and I'm not a person who's a fighter, but I have stood up for myself more now that I've gotten older than I did when I was a child or, even a young teenage girl. I also know that I was listening at some point, oh, I think this is what triggered me. And thank you, Joe. He said that he was down in Harlem on 145th and Lenox, an area that I'm very familiar with. And he got robbed right in front of his father by people who he knew had already robbed, and they were on their way probably over the bridge to, go to Queens or Brooklyn or wherever they came from, or at least on the highway, because you can get to the Major Deacon, you can get to other, Triborough Bridge, places like that from that spot, not far. But they recognized him And they stopped and walked to him and said, you know what time it is. And he was wearing a chain, but they recognized him. And they didn't care that his father was right there with him. But they took time from completing their criminality to rob him, and just walked to him and said, you know what time it is. And it took me back to that same, when I got raped years ago when I was a kid, the person asked me what time it is. What time is it? I didn't have a watch. And then I said, maybe he said, you know what time it is. I don't know. But it brought me there. And then I started thinking about boundaries and standing up for myself. And as I said, you know, I think I did a good job of that, because I was set in many situations from then on that called for me to set boundaries and to respect other people's boundaries. Also, regardless of what my childhood experiences were, no matter what my parents, my mother, my father, whatever went on, at some point I wasn't in that, because I set boundaries, because I moved myself away from that. But I ended up in a job where I met more of that type of narcissistic, controlling energies, right? I'm dealing with people who are locked up, so people are being controlled. People who have all kinds of darknesses, whether they're inmates or staff. And I set boundaries in that. That's why I don't have a bunch of friends from that time. That was 23 years of my life. I've had people that I was friendly with, people who I called friends, but at some point, I chose to back away from certain people rather than them backing away from me. And maybe some of them did, but it wasn't anything that I pursued. It wasn't it. mm. And I used to joke with my kids and my siblings and tell them, y'all know I don't miss nobody. And that's probably not a good way to feel about people, but I think that has been my defense mechanism, maybe. Okay. Because of my abandonment issues, maybe. So I make sure that I don't get too close to certain people. But at the same time, to be fair to myself, because as much as we want to, we are supposed to take a look at ourselves and to delve in to ourselves. What Spirit gave me today is that who proved you wrong along the way? Where were you put in a situation where you were able to trust, where you were able to be vulnerable, as far as at work? So if most of your time is spent surrounding work, And there were times that I set boundaries for myself as far as taking care of myself. When I felt that I had gotten to the point that it was too stressful and that it wasn't healthy for me, no matter what I was told, oh, you're on probation, or you don't want them to put you out on stress. You don't want that on your record because then you'll never get promoted. I didn't let that affect me to the point where I wasn't going to take care of myself. And I just I left it to the universe. Whatever happens, happens. But I know right now I have to take care of myself. I need to talk to somebody, get some therapy, see a doctor. Something is going on. And I didn't care what the repercussions of it were going to be as far as my reputation or my ability to, advance in my career or anything like that. I put myself first. And that's a boundary because I know people who have not reached out on for any counseling, mental health, who were afraid to go out on stress because they wouldn't be able to keep their gun when it was time to retire, or they wouldn't be able to carry a gun, or any other things like that. But these were fears that were set up by people trying to make other people fearful, trying to control other people. And I stood up against that for myself, not for anybody else. If somebody asked me, I would, you know, tell them my experience, but I didn't allow that environment, as controlling as it was, to take over my life because mm, I didn't feel it like that, I didn't think I was better than anybody or anything. I just knew that it just wasn't sitting well with my soul. I made a way for myself within that to be able to survive within that, and I am so grateful for that opportunity. But I can't say that between working there and my environment where I live, which is nice, beautiful, suburban, you know, that I was in before I even went on that job, because I took myself out of Brooklyn. 1313, when I said that. I took myself out of Brooklyn. And even in Brooklyn where I lived wasn't bad. But I wanted a different lifestyle for myself and my kid. But even out here, who how many, if I have abandonment issues, right? If I have my defenses up, right, against men because I, haven't seen good examples of them, or, I saw, um, for some reason, it was the women in my family's fault that men weren't around. Okay. Regardless of all of that, let's put the blame all on us. Who showed me different? Where did I see different around me, external to me, external to my family dynamics, other family dynamics, other women, other men, other families? Where did I see it different? Whether it was work, whether it was community, friends, the bar, church, where did I see an example of anything differently? Now, there would be, I'm sure, someone, especially if somebody from a church were to hear this, they say, oh, well, you're not talking about, my husband or, my wife or whatever. Yes, I am, darling, because I was privy to a lot more realness sometimes with certain friends and certain situations than a lot of than their spouses would have been, because I saw them in social situations. I knew what was going. I'm looking. I was looking through my Facebook, and I see people just celebrating birthdays, holidays, milestones and graduations and wonderful things like that. And there are people that I've known for years, and I never knew that they were married. Not just that they were married to a civilian, but that they were married to another member of service. And not only that they weren't married, I'm not their friend, I don't need to know all that, but thinking that they were married to somebody else, or that they were seeing someone else where they worked, because I saw them with this person where they worked, and I thought that that was what was up. But the department is set up like that. I think I've mentioned that before. If you have 10,000 employees and you have 10 buildings, and you put 1,000 employees in different buildings, it's very easy to have people who are married to one another. If the woman decides to keep her last name, or if they meet off the job, or they get married afterwards and they don't reveal it to the department, it'd be all over. And if you are married to someone, you're not supposed to work in the same facility with them. That's one of the rules. You could lose your job for that. So the department is encouraging officers to be in separate buildings. The colonizers are very smart, and we go for it. Before I came on the job, the department was there for many, many, many years. And many years went by before women were allowed to work as officers with male inmates. And it didn't really happen on a, mass basis until the late 80s, where it was like recruitment to get women on the job, recruitment efforts to get women on the job. And that presents its own challenges when you're dealing with women and black women, amongst women amongst ourselves is a whole different thing. But once women came on the job and those type of rules or directives were put in place, if we want to talk about separating black families or making it hard for couples to even meet people of their same caliber, it's built into the system in New York City. And New York City is an experiment for many prison systems, example rather, for many prison systems across the country, even across the world. So you're in a situation, we have a minority workforce. Black men and black women, and Latino men and Latino women. Of course you have all nationalities work there. But at the time that I came on the job, and I think even now, more guys who are white or Irish, Italian, they would tend to go to the New York City Police Department. If they became correction officers, maybe they would become correction officers temporarily, because it's the same pay scale. But they would take the test and wait until they were called by the NYPD, and then they would leave corrections a lot of the time. and the majority of the officers who were in the Department of Corrections ended up being black males and then black women and Latino women and black and Latino men, and like I said, lots of minorities. There's not any minorities that I don't think that I think are not represented in New York City Department of Correction. That has to be said, and that's a good thing, because every nationality is represented within the inmate population also, so why not? Makes sense. That's why there needs to be more versatility within the New York City Police Department. But anyway, moving along, that's another subject. But I've set boundaries. I set boundaries with inmates and with coworkers, with officers that I worked with officers who were my superior officers, and officers who I was their superior officer. I set boundaries with people out where I lived. People knew, don't come to my house without calling, that type of stuff. I spent my free time at home when I needed to, but I also went out and did things when I needed to. My kids may not have appreciated it, but I needed time to be, myself. And I want to give myself credit for being balanced and trying to remain balanced, for trying to maintain balance. And I'm grateful, first of all, that Spirit brought this to me this morning. And also that Spirit has been guiding me and letting me follow my intuition. Sure, I've had relationships that didn't work out and people cheated or whatever like that, but it's not like after the relationships were over, these guys turned out to be good husband picks anyway, for whoever they went to next or after that or after that. You know what I'm saying? It's like Spirit brought to me, it's like I didn't make bad decisions when I decided not to continue with that relationship. You know? That, or allow that relationship to leave my life, even if it hurt me. I didn't chase it. I didn't go after it. I respected that boundary that that person set. So I have respected boundaries, but I have also defended myself when I needed to, defended my family when I needed to, when people crossed my boundaries. And if that caused, if that caused someone to leave, then that was their choice. But I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. And if it caused them to leave, again, I didn't compromise my boundary. So then, okay. So was all of this that I've been dealing with as the spiritual journey has been unfolding, was it just more test? Or was it for me to recognize places where I had allowed myself to become weak and codependent? And yes. And it was mainly after I retired, because I had kept my boundaries as I had. I had kept boundaries up with a lot of people who needed to be excommunicated or, kept at bay for a reason. But at the same time, I hadn't had time to make new friends because I was working or taking care of my family. So this journey is about me getting my city skills back. Okay, all right. About me getting my skills back so I can remember how to maneuver in civilization, because where I was quite uncivilized, to say the least. To get my discernment back, because I had become dependent on my relationship with my son's father. So therefore, when that left, there was a void. But it was something that I manifested because I saw, like, I don't want this to be my life. It has to be more than just this. Taking care of everybody and always having the load on me, the responsibility for everything and everybody. That, thank you, in my life fell on it wasn't even seemed, it did. I took care of a lot of people. I took care of a lot of ungrateful people. I had people who lived in my home for long periods of time and did minimal and didn't even say thank you. I had a cousin of mine that lived with me for years. And when she moved, you would have thought that I had done something to her. And I never confronted her about it. I never said anything about it to her. Her children are my goddaughters. She is my blood. And I've been nothing but kind to her since we were children. But she's giving me her ass to kiss for no reason. But when the kids were ready to turn 15, she wanted to make sure to remind me 2 years ahead that I could chip in on their quinceañera. Oh, no. Come on now. I don't have sucker written across my forehead. Those children come up to New York every year to see their father, I guess. And they don't come to see me. Not because you don't remind them or tell their father to bring them here. So, I've done my bit. When they grow up and they get, their own places, or they go to college or something like that, and I have to deal with each of them directly, that's another thing. But her, no. And it's not that I'm not even mad at her. I'm just like, come on now. I love her, but I've learned her. And so that's a boundary. Because I see who she is. It doesn't mean if something serious happens, and I need to contact her, I wouldn't. Sure, I would. But I'm not going to, I wouldn't go out of my way for her again. I allowed her to live with me twice as an adult. Her and 3 kids. 5 kids, actually, 5. And no problem with the children. And no problem with her really either. She even had, dated people and whatever when she was here. No problem with that. But what did I get in return? Roaches. Imported from Maryland. Lots of stuff, lots of junk, lots of things in my house that I didn't need. Like it was storage. Like my home was free storage after she was gone. Part of the things that I threw out yesterday, I'm sure some of it may be hers. I mean, I know um, it must be, but I don't care because her daughters had a chance to come and get things. She did, and more years have passed since then. And if you don't care, I don't. I can't. It's not mine anyway. I'm not even checking to see what it is. It's to the basura. That's it. But no hate. I don't know who that is. Might be her. I don't even care. Oh my goodness. I don't know who that is and I don't care. But it's just I'm glad that I got to know her. I'm glad I was able to be there for her and the children at the time, but not to no, I'm not indebted to her. She's not indebted to me. A thank you would be nice. I gave her a car, a van, and she took it with her when she left. And then she bought herself a new vehicle, but so I was like, well, where's my plates? She never returned my plates to me. She never even told me that she had got a new car. So I'm still paying insurance on this thing. Stuff like that. Mm-mm. No, don't got time for that. Not at all. So that's a person that I set a boundary with, someone that I showed compassion to. And so I learned. I've shown compassion to people who were not family members. I was thinking about that too when I was thinking about, who has shown me as far as men and relationships go, anything different, anything that I could say is a good example, a faithful relationship between two people. Surface, but for some of these people, not all, not everybody, but for the vast majority of people that I have been friendly with or known them and their spouses or their families, whatever. No, no shade. And if don't if if this if it's your husband or your spouse, you know. You may act like you don't know, or you may not want to acknowledge it, but you know. So I wouldn't be exposing anybody right now, and I wouldn't care if I did at this point. But it's not even about that. It's just about just looking at behaviors. I've heard some ratchet things come out of some women's mouths in regards to their relationships, and I've heard some past ratchet things come out of men's mouths in regards to their relationships. I've seen the duality of how spouses talk about one another, but then when the phone rings and it's the spouse, how their whole demeanor changes, and so that person would never know that their person jokes about them like that or hates them that much. But I've seen it. So it's not even about them as much as, well, why wouldn't I feel the way I do about relationships and boundaries and fears of abandonment? What have I seen around me but that? And I've been accepting of people that I deal with, so I haven't been expecting anything from them. Thank you, Spirit. Because why should I? Monogamy is a lofty ideal, which is very possible, but not realistic. It's something that we strive to, something that we theoretically desire to maintain, but is it realistic? And so maybe my feelings are logical based on what I've seen, what examples I've seen, and being accepting of people's vulnerabilities, being cheated on, having myself put into situations where suddenly I'm committing adultery with somebody that I had no idea was married. Someone changes your status without even giving you a choice about it. And then you become the bad guy, or the, other woman or the side chick. And having someone refer to you as a side chick when they're not even married, because they're divorced now, or single or whatever, and they're used to having these relationships where they talk about these other people as side chicks. So now when they're not in that contractual agreement or that relationship, but they still have it in their mind like they're dealing with side chicks. Well, I can only be a side chick if you're single, if that means that you have other chicks. That's my way of looking at it. So why wouldn't I be distrustful? You haven't changed your vocabulary. You haven't changed the way you present yourself. So why would I change the way that I perceive you? What evidence have you given me of anything different? What evidence has the universe given me of difference? Not to say that, like I said, there are people who surfacely appear happily married, but you don't know what goes on behind people's closed doors. And you don't know what things people went through before they got together, or what things people put up with within relationships, because we only see what we see. But people have challenges, and every day is not going to be rosy. But it's something that we want, it's something that we strive through, it's something that we have faith in, something that we believe in, something that society has structured for us, and we have tried to maintain that goal. But my not choosing to participate doesn't make me a uh, whatever this nonsense is going around that's being said about single women or mature women who have decided to remain single. Of course you're concerned about dying alone. But what does alone mean? At the end of the day, or at least hopefully you'll be in a hospital and there'll be a nurse or a doctor or somebody around. Even if you stayed married 50 years, there's going to be a place, unless you die holding hands, you are going to die alone. You were born alone. So what is that really? I'm going to die with not my, not having a different last name on my obituary. Well, my death certificate is going to say my maiden name either way. Right? So what's the why are we being shamed or allowing ourselves to be shamed because we have learned how to survive in the circumstances, and we haven't killed ourselves, and we haven't gone out here and, you know, done things that weren't against our character. And now if you're not happy, then find a way to make yourself happy in that. Broaden your dating, you know, criteria, maybe, if that's what you want to do. Do online dating, you know, traveling, things like that. There are steps that you can take to meet people. But you don't have to lower your standards out of desperation or out of condemnation of your choices that you made to survive because somebody, because that's popular, to again victimize black women. So the Willie Lynch victimized us, and now our brothers and woke sisters want to victimize us too, because it's always the black woman's fault. It's our fault that Joe Biden won the election, and it's our fault that our men aren't happy and don't feel supported. It's our mother's fault that our fathers aren't. So it's always the woman who is bearing the brunt of this. Some of it is valid, but some of it is like, come on now. There's some equal thing here. There's equal responsibilities on the side of men and the side of women in the black community, just as it is in every other community. Take responsibility for your hurts. Don't blame it on your mother because you're a man and your father wasn't around, or blame it on society. Society, okay, maybe, because there's injustices. So I'm going to take that part of back right now, because there are injustices in society against black people that are just beyond reason. But again, it's systematic. Getting back to the Department of Corrections, you take women, give them this opportunity to make decent money so that they can take care of their children and themselves, and you tell them if they get married, they're going to have to be separated from their spouse. And you also put them in situations where if they're in a relationship and they're partners in another building, there's no way for them to know what's going on. So that's setting up distrust. It's the same type of plantation mentality. They working on this plantation, and now they need to send the certain amount of people to another plantation, so we're going to move these people to that plantation because we need the bodies over here to do the work, and now you're separated. Now you can find time to see each other on your off time, but correction officers sometimes don't get off times. There are people who get stuck 4 out of 4, which means you work an 8-hour shift and you think that you're leaving for the day. No, you're not. Officer, I need you to go back and assume this post. It's not like PD Department of Corrections a fixed post. Someone has to be there because you have a responsibility of a certain amount of inmates. And you can't leave that post closed because it's a housing area. Inmates live there. Officers have to be there to, do our duties, care, custody, and control. So you can't abandon a post or shut a post down because the officer doesn't show up to work. On the police department, if an officer doesn't show up, then somebody else can cover that beat. Nobody's going to get stuck unless it's an emergency situation, right? So there's more ability for, at the end of a tour, for an officer who's a police officer, as long as it, not any violent circumstances, any things like that, chances are at the end of their 8 hours, they're going to go home if they want to. That's a whole nother thing. But correction officers are not guaranteed. And there are no phones for officers to call home and tell their families, I'm not coming. And the captain and the officers in the control room are not picking up the phone and calling your house and say, oh, by the way, officer so-and-so got stuck. They're not going to be home for 8 hours or 4 hours. And there have been times in the department where people were stuck every day that they work. We work 4 days and we're off 2. 4 days and off 2. Now there's 7 days in the week, so how does it work? But that's how it works. And people don't know whether or not they're going to be able to go home. And at some point, there was no way of their spouse knowing that they were coming home or not. So again, it lends itself to all kinds of shenanigans. If your partner isn't monitoring your paycheck, they won't know if you made overtime or not. You could tell them you were stuck for 8 hours, or you could be somewhere else for 8 hours and come home. And they'll never know. Unless their intuition tells them, or, it comes out, or you confess it, or you don't care, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? But there's no way for you to know. So, and if your partner is only focused on materialism, they may not be paying attention. If you're keeping them in that good of a lifestyle, or between the two of you, you're making that kind of money, or you're respecting each other's privacy, they're not checking on you like that. Whatever it is, it's something that male and female can get away with if they're so inclined. So again, monogamy is a goal. It is something that you do because you want to do it, because this is how you believe you want to live your life. This is about your respect for yourself and your relationship. So it's a goal. It is an expectation, but part of the journey is learning to give up on expectations, and allowing a person to be who they are, and allowing you to be who you are also. So this is just reflections, and it's long. It's already 48:56 when I said that. But just something that I was told it would be okay to talk about this morning. And even though I'm in bed and I'm looking all crazy this morning, it's just was on my heart. Not to beat up on ourselves, to look at the circumstances around us, accept our faults, accept our imperfections, but at the same time, being a little easy on yourself, because you came through it, you survived it somehow, despite all. You've survived it, and you've come out on the other side able to reflect on it. And share the wisdom, the lessons, things that you might not think are important really could be important for someone else to hear someday or even right now. And I just want us to start, as we start to reemerge from this bubble that we've been in, this quarantine time, and this spiritual journey, and we're going through retrogrades, and so retrogrades are about returning and releasing, reflecting, right? Responding, removing, and rewarding. So rewarding ourselves for making it thus far and being grateful for the wisdom that this life has brought you to this day, whether you be 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 or 70, 80 or 90. Wherever you find yourself on this journey at this time, be grateful for whatever. Be grateful that you're able to wake up and talk about it or think about it or watch this or anything. Grateful for life, because where there's life, there's hope, and hope is another opportunity. And not to be too hard on yourselves. We're not perfect. What I also was, it came to me that, they say that we look at the potential in people. And that's where we get disappointed because of our expectations. And what I came to understand about my relationship or relationships, that there were people that I saw the potential, like we all do, right? Because everybody sends you their representatives. And then they show you later who they are. It could happen now, it could happen next week, it could happen next year, it could happen 20 years from now. But eventually, people show you who they are. I'm gonna call whoever this is back. People show you who they are. And you show them. And then they either stay with it or not, or you stay with it or not. And I think in the case of the person that I considered my twin, my DM, it wasn't about seeing the potential. It was about the qualities. The qualities. He already came to the table with qualities that I recognized. It wasn't about potential. He was already that. Those things that I admired were already present in him, and I recognized it. And that hasn't changed. Even through the ugly, even through all of this, he still has the qualities that he always had, even as an asshole. He's still, I can't take, there's certain things I just can't take from, I can't say negatively about this person because that's who they are. So again, not to beat up on myself, I wasn't setting expectations about him that he wasn't already who he is, and I recognized it. It wasn't an expectation, it was an acceptance. Bad and good. Bad and good, I already knew who he was. Maybe I didn't know how bad it could be, but I knew the bad was there. I knew the bad. It was no, mm, I met him knowing the bad was there, because there was, he was a male chauvinist pig when I met him, and nothing about that has changed. He is, and that was how we started interacting with one another. So it wasn't like it was something that he hid. He might not consider himself to be a male chauvinist pig, but that's the best I could think of at this moment to describe the way I perceived him, or my perception of him at the time, and it hasn't changed either. Maybe, one day if we ever sit down and talk, maybe he's changed or grown. I don't expect that he has. But maybe, but I don't expect it, because he is who he is. But the thing about him that I liked, the things about him that I liked, are still the same things. Nothing's changed. And the same way I could release myself from that before, I can release myself from that now. But it was just the time that I needed to transition into it. And I'm grateful for his presence in my life that distracted me from the loss that I had when this journey kicked into high gear and brought me to YouTube, and brought me to this spiritual journey, and to be under this sharing and learning and spirituality and growth that I've experienced, that we've experienced together. And I'm grateful again for all of that. I'm grateful for God's presence. I'm grateful for my ancestors, my spirit guides. I'm grateful for my DM. I'm grateful for my audience, my friends, people who I've come to feel sisterhood with, uh, people who are part of the collective, feeling the collective energy. It's great. It's supportive. I feel like I'm being supportive. I feel like I'm supporting others of you and validating each other. And even he and I validating each other. In positive ways, as well as, the negativity that goes along with the mirroring. But not all of the mirroring is bad. Mirroring is also showing and giving you an opportunity for empathy to the other person, because you realize that you're experiencing the same challenges simultaneously, as well as other things, synchronicities and all of this other stuff. But there are challenges that you are both experiencing in your lives, whether you are in communication or not. You will find out at some point, or you will come to realize at some point, that just like everyone else in the collective, your person is experiencing these same things, these same feelings, these same doubts, these same fears. It's just part of the wisdom that you've both gained over time, and your path. Everybody doesn't have a twin flame, and everybody is not going to meet their twin flame, and everybody's not going to even find their soulmate. And that's okay. Because if you don't, then it's not meant this time around. But that means that there's potential for you to return and get it right the next time. And I know a lot of us are like, thank you, but no thanks. But I think this time it'll be easier because they said the children who are born in this, like after 1990, 2000, coming back with a different energy, with a different, like you're going to have a more of an understanding of your purpose earlier in life. We're not going to be we're not going to all have as much as amnesia as we did the last few incarnations, and it'll be more acceptable because the parents of the children coming in are going to be more enlightened, more awakened, more spiritual, and not afraid of these gifts, more appreciative of the gifts of those children. So if you're fortunate enough to choose to return on another cycle, just know that you're probably going to have an easier time of it the next time because you have gotten to this place where we are in our spiritual journey. If you've embraced the spiritual journey, if you've chosen not to, then you've chosen not to. If you're doing it a different way, whatever way, but know that wherever you end up the next time, it'll be a softer landing and a softer journey. That's what Spirit said that it was. So don't fear that. So you don't have to be afraid of dying alone. You don't have to be afraid burning in hell with no husband or whatever, or no wife or whatever. Like, none of that. Pay your insurance. Okay, and the relationship is between you and God. God was with you when you came here, and God will be with you when you leave. And just know that. Let that bring you some peace, if that makes any sense. I don't know if any of this is going to make sense until I watch it back. It's just ramblings and reflections this morning. So it's Memorial Day weekend. So that's the time for a lot of remembrances. Again, reflections, remembrances, all right. And gratitude. So I hope everybody has a wonderful weekend. I'll come back if I'm led to do so. Maybe in a more organized, outlined way next time. I don't know. But I don't even know if I'm going to release this. But we'll see. But I just needed to get some things out, I guess. Thinking out loud. Just thinking out loud. And sharing these thoughts, sharing those thoughts with you. Whoever sees this. So, let's see. Okay, I got these cards here. Are they here? Yep. Excuse me. Let's see if there's a message from the Mother Mary Oracle. So let's see if we get a message this morning. Ever since I got them, I took them off the altar and they've been laying in the bed with me. But that's good, right? Under my pillow. So let's see what this message is from Mother Mary Oracle. What's the message? Thank you. Okay, number 35. Our Lady of Divine Direction. Mm. Okay. Let's see what that's about. 35. Mm. Okay. Mm. Okay. All right. I am guiding you, my child, and I ask you to trust me. All right, let's do this. I'll read it and hold it up here. See it. I'm guiding you, my child, and I ask you to trust me. Recently, you had, or soon will have, a sudden change in direction in a manner that perhaps surprises you. Do not resist this. Allow my hand to guide the course of your life direction. I have foreseen a pitfall that you can easily avoid while still reaching your destination. Pray to me and trust, and together we shall journey on towards the goal. Okay. Well, let's see what this is saying here. Do I have a flashlight or something on this? I don't want to mess up the vibe. I don't think I have a flashlight. This will work. Okay. All right. There are times when the quickest way to a destination is not the most obvious or direct route. When you have the wise eyes of the mother watching over your journey, she will nudge you to take an alternate route if there is a big hole in the middle of the road up ahead. Even though you can't see it as yet, perhaps you have an experience driving home when you felt that your usual route wasn't such a good idea. You either trusted your gut and went a different way, only to find out later that there was a big accident and backed up traffic on your traditional route. If you ignored your intuition only to end up at that big accident and stuck in the back in backed up traffic. Okay, sorry. So you either trusted your gut and went a different way, only to find out later that there was a big accident and backed up traffic on your traditional route, or you ignored your intuition only to end up at that big accident and stuck in backed up traffic. This mundane example can apply in larger circumstances. Perhaps you're trying for entry into a particular course or applying for a particular job, only to find that again and again you were knocked back. Okay, here we go. All right, this may be relevant. Now, yes, if this is truly in your heart, then you must continue. Perhaps the knockbacks were helping you build trust and self-belief, which you will need to be able to do the job that you are seeking without losing your inner connection and spirituality. This might be so, especially if the company you're eventually going to work for has some dark or negative tendencies in its corporate culture. Perhaps part of your undercover spiritual work in taking on an administrative role there, for example, is to help balance the spiritual light in the organization. You would need a strong inner light to be able to do that and not become depressed and disconnected in that toxic culture. Circumstances in your life might be building your inner light so that you are ready for your future work. This happens more often than we might expect. I think this is confirmation, folks. What is happening? However, if something is not truly in your heart, but is more in your mind out of habit or not seeing any other way, okay, then you may well find closed doors. If you were to glimpse behind those doors, you might notice Mother Mary on the other side, shutting them firmly in your face after whispering to you to go down the hall and try a different door. Okay. Our Lady of Divine Direction arises when you are pursuing a path and there is going to be a nudge in a different direction. This is either coming soon or has just happened. This oracle says to trust in that. And the reason for it will become apparent later on. It might be to build your spirituality. It might be to build yourself spiritually, or it could simply be a timing issue. It might, however, indicate that a slightly or very different path is actually going to help you get where you need to go. If you had pulled Our Lady of Starting Over as well, then the change in direction is timely now and will probably be quite obvious in nature. If you pulled Our Lady of Nourishment as well as Our Lady of Divine Protection, then you are being nudged in a direction, in a different direction that will satisfy your real needs much, much more. You might need a lot of trust because your change in direction may not materialize right away. If you have ever seen a large boat change course and you are a large soul, beloved, hence the analogy, then you will know that it seems to slow almost at a standstill. Okay, let me get this light back. Who was I for light? Okay. Uh, Once it is on course again, eventually it picks up power and it's full steam ahead. It will be the same for you. No matter what the details of your particular situation may be, there is a need for trust. This helps the flow of healing change, so it's so much easier for us to sense what we need to do, or perhaps even not do, to allow this new way to manifest itself. If you have been praying for change, but it has yet to show itself, this oracle comes with this message for you. The Holy Mother has heard your prayer and is responding. Circumstances are being set up in your life so that you can receive the new direction in the best possible way. Sometimes this will happen unexpectedly. Sometimes we will need great patience whilst we wait. Sometimes we will need great courage to act. The following healing process will help you know how to proceed and when to be patient and wait. See, sense, or feel that you are standing in a wide open space at a crossroads. There might be dust on the road and no street signs either way, just roads going in different directions. Say this prayer aloud. Mother Mary, who loves me unconditionally, Our Lady of Divine Direction, guide me on my life path now. I gratefully accept any changes in direction that help me fulfill my divine destiny. Please bless me with trust, courage, and protect me with your grace. Imagine that you can step into the center of the crossroads with your eyes closed. You sense a loving hand at your back and the gentle fragrance of roses. And you know the Divine Mother is with you. Allow her to turn you, nudge you gently, or take your hand and walk with you. Even though you may not know in what direction you're moving, she may even just stand still with you. Allow whatever needs to be, to be. Be with her for as long as you need. And when you're ready, complete your healing process with the following affirmation and said aloud, if possible, 3 times. The Divine Mother Mary directs me along the truest and best path for my divine fulfillment in service to the greater good now. With her blessings and grace, I have the courage and trust I need to accept this direction and follow it faithfully. So be it. All right, so I'll repeat it for you 2 more times. The Divine Mother Mary directs me along the truest and best path for my divine fulfillment in service to the greater good now. With her blessings and grace, I have the courage and trust I need to accept this direction and follow it faithfully. So be it. The Divine Mother Mary directs me along the truest and best path for my divine fulfillment in service to the greater good now. With her blessings and grace, I have the courage and trust I need to accept this direction and follow it faithfully. So be it. The Divine Mother Mary directs me along the truest and best path for my divine fulfillment in service to the greater good now. With her blessings and grace, I have the courage and trust I need to accept this direction and follow it faithfully. So be it. Amen. Ashe. So, I'm going to leave it there. I was going to see whether or not those other 2 cards came out. And maybe I'll do that because that's probably personal. And I don't want anybody to be... This is about your direction, my direction. So I don't want to take anybody's hopes or anything from them. I don't want to implant that with my energy this time. Okay? So, I'm just led to do it that way. So anyway, thanks for allowing me to take up 80 minutes and 32 seconds of your life. And I'll timestamp this part of the Mother Mary deck so that you can come back to it if it's relevant to you. All right, so that you don't have to listen to the rest of my rant and reflections. So I hope you're having a great day. And I'll thank you so much for that, for allowing me to take up this amount of your time. Thank you for being patient with me. And I'll be speaking to everybody later. Have a wonderful day and a great weekend. Talk to you all real soon. Ashe, peace.